All right. Welcome to everybody to our monthly blab. This week we have Marie Herman, who's from Fermi National Accelerators Lab, and she's going to talk to us about being an amazing assistant and really all the elements that is part of that job, as well as her own business, MRHEnterprises, where she's going to tell us what she does on the side as well, because, you know, admins just don't have enough energy for one job. They get to do two. So thank you very much for joining us, Marie. We really appreciate you here. For those of you that are new to Blab, it is being recorded. So if you are looking to get a recording, we will absolutely be able to do that. If you'd like to join the conversation where you can invite yourself and ask Marie questions, please just click the button that says join or knock or whatever that fancy word is, and we'll let you join in the conversation, where then your video camera comes on and you can ask questions as well. You can also use the chat window, which is in the bottom right-hand corner where it says send a message, and I will be moderating that as well. So everyone is more than welcome to join us. We have something in Blab. It's like the Facebook like, and it's called applause. So it's called props. Let me get the word out. So when I click like that, I'm giving Marie yay, and so she gets little happy faces, and it's me clapping my hand, and you see my little face come up there. So please send us lots of props as we go through when you like something as well. So my name is Rhonda Scarf from On the Right Track Training and Consulting, and I'd like to welcome you officially to our Blab. But I want to take a minute for Marie to tell us a little bit about who she is and what you do. Off to you, Marie.
Thank you, Rhonda. So yes, I have worked for the Fermi National Accelerator Lab for the last 10 years almost. It's about 9 years, 9.5 right now. And I support the Chief Technology Officer, and I'm in the technical division, which manufactures cryomodules and superconducting magnets and other scientific things that, please don't ask me to explain the science part, because I don't know any of that stuff.
Sounds very Superman.
I know, man. But it actually is really interesting work with people that are truly passionate about what they do. They literally retire and keep coming to work. So it's a fascinating place to work, that's for sure. And then on the side, I also am the owner of MRHEnterprises, which is a training and education business where I go out and I do seminars and webinars and write articles. I have a monthly column in Executive Secretary magazine as well. So I get around.
That's a good thing, right? Lots of energy. So how long have you been at Fermi?
9.5 years now.
Always in the same department?
Yep. I've been in the same position, but I've gone through 3 bosses. So
that was my next question. How many managers
four,
have you
technically.
trained? 4.
Technically 4 bosses in that time. So the job has changed a lot without me changing a bit.
Okay. So what kind of things now you support the whole department, or just is your supervisor or your boss man or a woman?
It's a man.
It's a man. So you support just him or the whole department? Or
I support him in what's called the headquarters department, which is about a half a dozen people. And we're over a division of 240. And Fermi itself is actually about almost 2,000 employees.
Okay. So what type of support are you offering them? What kind of things are you doing day to day?
I do what I consider traditional administrative in terms of ordering office supplies, setting up travel, doing expense vouchers. And then I also do some non-traditional responsibilities like maintaining the website, maintaining a lot of the databases. So I do a lot of that kind of work as well. It's a mix.
That is a mix. So the team that you support, are they fairly self-sufficient, or do they really rely on
Most of them are. Most of them are, although it's varied by boss. It's been very interesting comparing the different bosses over the years, because there's been an extreme difference in the level of self-sufficiency and the level of technology awareness as well. So that's been really interesting to watch between the different individuals that have gone through that position.
So how long have you been in administration as a whole? Without telling us how old you are, how long have you been here?
A little over 20 years.
Okay, a little over 20 years. So given 20 years worth of experience, what is your because there's a really interesting mix. There's some people that really like to support. They like when it's a little bit more traditional, and there's some people who like a team that's very independent and they sort of work alongside with them. Which do you prefer?
I definitely generally prefer the independent ones, although I've been a teacher for so long, teaching classes on the side, that I almost always end up with individuals that are kind of technology phobic and need a lot of hand holding too. So that goes with the job, I think.
And you don't mind it?
No, I don't mind that.
No. Good. So what's your favorite part of the job? What gets you excited to do when it's on your to-do list for the day?
I really enjoy when I get a chance to plan some of the bigger events. So in my current position, that's things like organizing we did an APW luncheon recently. I do the picnic for my division, and I do division head safety talk and things of that nature that I organize. I really like those because you get some different responsibilities. You get away from your desk a bit. You have a chance to interact with people. I've also organized some of the lab-wide parties, which are the ones that have 2,000 attendees. And so that gives you a chance to work with people from throughout the lab instead of just within my own division.
Are they on site or do you take them off site?
They are on site. We actually own 10 square miles of property.
Wow.
10 square, yeah, there's 10 square miles. It's
What?
huge. And so we have restored prairie and wetlands. It's a gorgeous facility, but we have like 30 different buildings there, maybe more. I'm not sure I know all the little buildings.
Wow.
And so there's a lot of different places. People are very spread out on this property.
Okay. So you like the planning, the event planning, which is actually a fairly common theme with administrative professionals. I think for the most part, people like that the best. That's a pretty popular thing. So here's also where we get a pretty standard answer, and I'll ask you what the answer before I tell you what it is. What is your least favorite part of the job? What part do you not look forward to?
Oh, I have two, which would be expense reports. Oh, God, I hate expense reports. And filing. Yeah, those are definitely my favorite.
So do you find that you're a little bit more of a piler, or do you file even though you hate it?
Yes, I am.
A piler?
Yeah.
That's okay.
I'm definitely a piler. We should recognize pragmatics,
You know, I as much as I teach this information, and as do you, I will totally own that I hate filing. The two most common things, the thing that most people like is event planning and travel arranging. Most people really like those two elements of being a sport professional. And the two pieces that most people hate are filing and minute taking. But I don't hate minute taking because I teach it. But I'm with you on expense reports. Those are my two dreaded things as well. So for those of you watching and you think, oh, me too, you are among friends. Because,
you are.
Most of us kind of fall into those categories. So being in the administrative professional world for, over 20 years, which is substantial, you've seen a lot of change. Mm-hmm. I'm sure at the labs you've seen a lot of change as well, like even just with all the managers that you have. What is the one thing, if you could look back and say, gosh, I wish somebody had told me X? What would you wish you had been told?
I think I wish I had been told that the job can change at any time, that you can end up getting new responsibilities at any time. You can get a new boss at any time. You can really find that your job may be horrible one day, but the next day it's going to be totally different. And so you just stick with it in that respect. And I wish someone had kind of told me that a little earlier on. There's going to be those good days and bad days.
Do you like the fact that it changes constantly, or
I do, actually. I really do. I like the fact that I'm always learning new software. I'm always getting new responsibilities. We're rolling out new things at work all the time. And so it means I'm always learning new things. And that is a lot of what keeps me engaged in the job.
Yep. And again, I think most admins are that way. Now, how did you get to the administrative professional world? Was it a straight line? How did you get here?
No, it was pretty much one of those... I started out originally as a temp years ago when my husband was in the military. And I wanted to have that flexibility of schedule. He was on submarines where he was gone for 3 months and back for 3 months. And I wanted to be able to set my schedule how I wanted it. And that's really where I started. And I temped for 5 years. And I actually ended up getting an offer at almost every single job that I temped at.
Good for you.
Yeah, it's very good for the ego, I think.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to go permanent at that time. It really suited my schedule. And that's, one of the beauties of the administrative profession is there's so much flexibility. You can get anything from telecommuting to working full-time or part-time. It can accommodate so many different kinds of schedules. And so eventually I did then transfer over to becoming a full-time admin. And from there, I've worked in a lot of different kinds of companies. I've worked in printing companies. I've worked for engineering companies. I worked for a forensic engineering company, which was a really interesting place to work because you'd go into work and they'd say, we're going to drop a bus from a crane today if anybody wants to watch it, or we're going to set a TV on fire out back if anyone wants to watch it. And one of my most interesting assignments there was we were in a meeting talking about, and I worked in the fire and explosion group. And so we were talking about, setting up some kind of a burn or something. And I said, well, would you like me to find you a house to burn down? And they looked at me and they're like, yeah, why don't you do that, Marie? And the next day I came back and I said, okay, I found you a house to burn down. And they were so excited. So they got to set a fire in each different room and put it out in different ways. And then they brought through a bunch of arson investigators and firefighters to try to figure out how the fires were started. I mean, obviously they all technically were arson, but they were set up where some were accidental and some were arson. And so we made a whole day of it, and, brought in lunch afterwards, and we made games out of it for the arson investigators. And, there was a lot of scientific information that came out of it because they set up sensors in all the different rooms and things. And, that was one of the most fun projects I've ever had. It's like, how often you get a chance to, be assigned to go find a house to burn down and then organize the burning of it.
That'd be fun. That'd be actually really interesting.
That was definitely a different one.
Oh, yeah. Now, something you said when you were a temp, in all the jobs that you did as a temp, you were offered a full-time position in virtually all of them. So as someone who teaches administrative professionals, what do you feel is, what did you do in those jobs that made you so valuable, that made you stand out? Why were you the standout candidate? Because I'm sure they get a lot of temps that they did not offer jobs to.
That's probably true. I think there's several things. The first is attitude. You've got to go in there with a positive attitude. And I actually had one job I came to where I walked in there and I said, hi, I'm your temp. And they looked at me and they said, oh, no, you're not the temp. You're not the right person for this job. And I said, okay. They said, you look too intelligent for this job. And I'm like, ow, what? What does that mean? They said, well, this job is actually going to be standing at a copier all day and literally just making copies all day. That is literally the only thing that job is going to be doing. And I said, okay, you're right. They didn't describe the job that way to me at the temp agency, but I'll stay until you find someone else to do the job. And I don't care. It's a job. I'll do what I need to do. And by the end of that day, they had decided to put me in another position and then bring in, the original temp that they had planned to bring in for that position. And a lot of it was the attitude, the being willing to say, you know what, I'll do whatever needs to be done. It's not something that's beneath me, or it's not my job, or it's whatever. It's having that positive, supportive attitude. And the other, I think, is being willing to be organized and to step in and start constructively looking for ways to improve things without actually upsetting the apple cart of getting people, feeling like their toes are being stepped on if you want to suggest changes. And that's the beauty of having worked in so many places as a temp, is I've seen a lot of different procedures. I've seen a lot of different ways of doing things. And so I really have learned a lot of ways to be more efficient. So if a company is receptive to that, then I can bring a lot of improvements to their processes.
So what's the secret, from your opinion, of making a suggestion for an improvement without stepping on the toes? Because that's a pretty tough line to walk.
It is. And I'm not going to say I'm perfect, because I think I step on toes all the time, probably. But I think a lot of it really is the phrasing. It's first trying to understand why they're doing things the way they're doing it and what they're trying to accomplish. And when you understand that, then you can say, hey, you know what? I know a feature that would allow you to do that in about half the time. Would you like me to show you? And then they're more receptive to it, because you've taken the time up front to learn why they're doing things the way they are. Usually there was a reason why they started doing it that way. Sometimes the reason is ignorance. Sometimes it is that they don't know how to use the software. But sometimes there's other reasons. Sometimes there's very valid reasons why they're doing things the way they are. But if you brainstorm, you can still sometimes come up with ways to be more efficient.
Okay. So if you were to say to someone, I know a way to save you half that time, are you interested? If they say, no, I'm not, how do you handle that?
I generally will walk away from it, but I also will sometimes ask, okay, can you tell me why? Why do you want it to take longer than it needs to take? Help me to understand that. Yeah. And, I'm not ashamed or afraid to put people on the spot. So if I think that they have a position that's not supported by logic, I don't mind saying something to them and asking them to help me understand their perspective better. But on the other hand, I don't hit my head against the wall either. And so I'm willing to walk away. If they really want to, keep their job security, that's probably what the big reason is. I'm not going to be the one to pull that away from them.
Good for you. Good for you. So what does a typical day look like for you? What time do you get into work? What kind of things are your regular job? When does all the stuff hit the fan?
I work 8:30 to 5. I've got the pretty traditional hours in that respect. And I'm fortunate that my job is not one that needs a lot of overtime at all,
That's
which
nice.
is a big plus. Yeah, I would not be happy in a job. I've done jobs in the past where I had to do a lot of overtime, and I didn't want that. I would say a typical day, the stuff hits the fan at about 8:32, sometimes
Okay.
8:28. They normally hit pretty hard and heavy in the mornings, and then we get the lull in the mid morning. Traditionally, though, it's some phone calls, not a ton. I think most people switched over to email now. There's not so many people that are calling me for help with things unless they really do need something that second. And one of the things that kind of cracks me up that's changed over the years is the mail is practically non-existent. I have for our 240 people, I would guess there's less than one tub of postal mail a day. I mean, it's
Wow.
really, really low because everybody sends things electronically now. There's so few things. It's a couple of magazines, it's a couple of letters, but so little goes through the mail. So that's one thing that I don't have to focus on too much, and I'm thankful for that. Setting up travel arrangements, a lot of my stuff is done on the computer. I'm dead in the water if we have a power outage. There is nothing I can do except occasionally file by flashlight. So with my computer, though, I can do pretty much all of my job almost, and a good part of it is spent in databases, in Word, in Excel, in Outlook, and on any given day, I probably have 15 windows open at any one time. I'm very much the multitasker in that respect.
Okay. So in your 20 plus years worth of experience, what's sort of one of the biggest lessons you've learned? What's something that surprised you along the way and you learned it either the first, second, or 20th time it happened?
Well, the one thing that surprised me along the way at my current job was when I was organizing one of the picnics for our division, and one of our headquarters staff went and invited an extra 40 people the morning of the picnic. And I learned in going forward to always have extra food beyond the extra food I normally have for events, because I ran out that year. And it was not a pretty sight. I was calling and ordering pizzas and Subway. Because I could see this long line and the food going down, and I'm like, I ordered, I don't know, enough for say 10 to 20 extra people. I did not order enough for 40 extra people.
That's a lot.
That's a lot, especially the day of, that morning. Yeah. So that was something that surprised me and that I had to adapt to. I can't say that first time it was pretty, but going forward, we have always had leftover food, no matter how many extra people they invite at the last minute.
Right.
Yeah. So that was
now.
An unpleasant
How did
surprise.
you handle that? What's in your role? Did you talk to the person who did that after the fact? Did you was it a I don't want to say confrontation because that makes it worse than it probably was. But was it a debrief? Like, what the heck happened there?
Oh, yeah, it was definitely a conversation, at least. Yes. We did do a bit of a debriefing on that, and to explain that we really needed to give thought ahead of time to the invitee list and not just, pull in an extra 30 or 40 people on the day of the event, that they really needed to think farther ahead, which I think was a good conversation to have, because sometimes people do need reminding that if you're going to wait till the last minute, then you're going to live with the consequences of what happens at that time. And you've got to plan ahead. You've got to work on, not waiting till that very last minute to set things up. And I still have to train some of my people on that. They have people coming into town and they don't think about the agenda for the day until the night before they're arriving. Hello, you knew they were coming for the last 2 months. Why are you waiting till the day before to decide who's going to meet with them when? Things like that.
Yeah. Now, in your role, are you treated pretty much as an equal, or do you have to fight for equality?
I would say overall, I'm mostly equal. However, in a science facility, and I've experienced this previously in an engineering facility, there's definitely a tier of scientists. And it's actually kind of funny because here it's scientists, and then there's also a second tier of engineers, and then it's like everybody else. And it's the first time I've been in a place where there's actually a tier between scientists and engineers, because usually they'd be on the same level. And I find that kind of amusing, thinking the engineers are getting a little taste of what we go through at the engineering firms. So I think in that respect, there will always be those kinds of levels. I'm treated with respect, but there's definitely a level where, you're a scientist or everybody else.
So when you get a new admin that joins the group and she comes to you for advice or coaching and she says they're not treating me like an equal, they're treating me like just whatever. What do you coach her to do? What kind of advice do you give her?
I actually don't
Or him?
entirely coach her. I coach her bosses as well. Because if someone does come to me with that conversation, I go and have a conversation with the bosses that they need to be cognizant of how they're speaking to their admin, the way they're interacting with them. But I have to say at my company, that's an extremely rare thing. They are really good about respecting the admins there and recognizing that we are there to make you guys look good. We're there to free you up so that you can do the big important things that you're passionate about. And so I think in that respect, my company is fantastic about recognizing the value of the admins.
So your current boss, how is, we're not asking you to throw anybody under the bus here, but what kind of things work really well between the two of you? Where are you very synergistic?
We are actually in a relatively new relationship. He's been there less than 6 months. And so we're still kind of discovering.
Still dating.
Yeah, we are definitely still dating. And so there's some things that that one of the good parts are that he's very technology literate, probably one of the most technology literate bosses I've had. So he's very good about doing things for himself. On the bad side, he's really technology literate. He's really good about doing things for himself, which means he forgets to include me in the loop on some things. You know, I had that today, actually, where I found out he's supposed to attend a conference in September, which I will be responsible for setting up the travel for, but he hasn't yet mentioned it to me. And I found out about it through a third party. So things like that, where there's just a little, and I know that that was just a brain lapse. It's not there's no intention behind that. But, you know, things like that happen very easily when someone is self-sufficient, that they forget that they have to keep other people in the loop for the things that they do or say. And especially if they want that other person to be able to follow up and take care of the responsibilities like setting up travel arrangements, for instance.
Right. So you're not monitoring his email. You're not managing him that way. Okay. So he really does need to let you know.
Yeah. At my company, they don't have the admins have access to the boss's emails.
Would you like to?
I've done it both ways, and in general, I've decided no, not really. I don't really want much.
I'm kind of with you.
I have enough with my own inbox. I don't need much theirs too. But I just want them to remember to include me on things like if you're sending out an email telling people Marie will do something, remember to copy Marie with that email.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So in your job, working with scientists and engineers, that certainly puts you in a different category than in most traditional corporate offices, because again, not being hard on scientists or engineers, but you're dealing with quite a variety of personalities and styles of working.
Yes.
That are not necessarily traditionally corporate. So with all the people that you work with, what would you say is the hardest people skill to master?
Well, I think in my current job, it's the diversity factor, actually. We have people from literally all over the world. We have not only the 2,000 employees that are at my company, we also have another 1,500 users from facilities around the world that come to use our facilities. And so understanding the different cultures and being able to interact with them and make sure that you're not creating offense unintentionally, or that you're not getting offended about something that they don't mean. Really understanding that, I think, is one of the greatest challenges. That's probably going to be the thing that I would say is definitely one of the biggest challenges. That working with those people from all those different backgrounds. I support someone from India, from Russia, from Italy, actually from Russia now, and then an American, and then I've had an Italian, so I mean, it's really a very different environment in that respect. And I actually came from a corporate background. My biggest challenge in that respect for the transition was not so much coming from a corporate background, it's the fact that it's not the scientists and engineers, it's that it's actually a government facility. And so I work for the federal government, and that means, number one, bureaucracy, and number two, things are done very, very different from the way they're done in the corporate world. So on top of the scientists and engineers, it's that extra layer of working for the federal government that required me to have a huge learning curve. There were so many things I had to learn, laws and legalities of how things are stored and how things are done and what rules. And there was an awful lot to learn with this job, that's for sure.
Yeah. Now, if you were in your own business, your MRH Enterprises business, and someone wanted you to coach them and said, you know, what I really want to do is become a Marie. This, like, what you do interests me. It's what I want to do. And he or she was in college or university right now taking, let's say, a business degree. What would you tell them they need to learn, focus on the most in order to be a successful administrative professional in 2016? What do they need to learn?
I think the main thing they need to learn is to look ahead to their next job. Whatever you want to do, don't just be thinking about whether or not it's going to benefit you in your current job. Always be thinking ahead to what's the next job I want to do? What are the skills I'm going to need for that job? What's the background that they're going to be looking for? So if you want to ultimately become a Fortune 500 CEO admin, and one of my past bosses was a Fortune 500 CEO, then you have got to have a strategy in mind for yourself for how you're going to get there. That means you're going to take a look at what they're currently doing, look at the job ads and see what kinds of skills they're looking for, what kind of responsibilities do they have, and make sure that you set your experience up so that when the opportunity arrives, you'll be able to accept it. All too often, people wait, thinking, I'll wait till I have the opportunity, and then I'll worry about how to do it. And I think that's the biggest mistake most administrative professionals make that limits them in their career.
Good for you. So what are you working on right now?
I am actually working on something new with my business. I'm doing what's called a goal achievement boot camp. And it's something actually just along the lines of what you're talking about. I'm going to select 10 individuals and I'm going to help them for 2 to 3 months to achieve a specific goal. And it should be something, big and not like a goal, set up a trip. I mean, it should be something that really is going to take several months. And we're going to actually go through the entire process of how to establish a strategic plan for yourself, set up your goals, what's it going to take to achieve them, and then make progress on them and be accountable to each other for getting them done. So that's one of my newest projects, actually. I'm pretty excited about that one.
So if somebody's interested, where would they find information about that?
Well, for that one, they actually can't. That particular one, I'm limiting just my mailing list. And since I'm limiting it to only 10 people, I actually have already got like 40 people applying for it. So that one actually is limited.
Yeah.
And so the other things they could look at are that I have a PowerPoint study group that starts up in June. I'm starting Certified Administrative Professional and Organizational Management study groups later this month. So if they're interested in becoming certified as an administrative professional, they can actually sign up for those study groups. And that is through the test through IAAP, the International Association of Administrative Professionals, to give the full acronym. And so if they'd like to learn more about those study groups, they can find out about that at the MRHEnterprises.com. That's my website.
MRHEnterprises.com. That's good. Well, hopefully people definitely go there. And if you don't already have your CAP Certified Administrative Professional, certainly work on getting that, and then all the different pieces that come with that Marie can help you. Yep. So thank you. That's very, very interesting. So do you have any final pieces of advice or anything you want our listeners to know?
The biggest thing I would tell you, and I know that you would agree with me on this, is that the learning is lifelong. You have got to constantly be out there looking for ways to challenge yourself and to stretch your boundaries and to be ready for anything that life throws at you. And the only way you can do that is if you're regularly looking to stay on the cutting edge with the skills. So learning the new technology, learning the software that's come out, finding out about, anything from minute taking like you offer to, Microsoft Office or whatever. That is what's going to make you successful ultimately in your career.
Yep. 20% of the working population falls into the support professional category. So 1 in 5 people do what we do. And most people are here accidentally. It wasn't necessarily in the master plan. Not that there's anything wrong with being here by any stretch of the imagination, but I agree. We always have to be working at your skills. Just because you have a job today doesn't mean you have one tomorrow. It's very much like exercise. Just because you're in shape today does not mean you are in shape tomorrow. So we have to constantly be working at it. So that's a great piece of final advice. I'd like to thank you very much for your time, for your knowledge, for your wisdom.
Well, thank you.
And hopefully all of our listeners enjoyed that as well. Our next Blab session will be the second Tuesday in June. We don't have a guest yet, but I promise I'll let you know who it's going to be. For May 2016, it was Marie Herman, and we learned a lot. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you.